Well, we'll be joined by the German ambassador, Michael Steiner, the German ambassador to India, in just a little while from now. But I'd like to introduce our panel, who we are going to be looking at this issue with very, very closely. Nalin Kohli, spokesperson of the BJP, with me this evening. Professor Janki Rajan, former director of the SCRT Delhi. Thanks, ma'am. Professor Pushpesh Pant, writer and columnist, and Rajiv Gowda, Rajya Sabha MP and spokesperson of the Congress Party, all with us. Well, I spoke to the ambassador a little while earlier on, Ambassador Steiner, and I began by asking him whether this decision of Smriti Irani could have an impact on the relations between India and Germany. Here's what he said.
I think we should be still hopeful that we find a practical solution. Allow me to say that I'm a fervent supporter of Sanskrit. I think there are not many ambassadors who held speeches on Sanskrit. I did this last year here at the Convention Center. Why am I saying that? Because I believe that cultural identity is important, but at the same time, it's important that you look outside, that you see the chances of the globalized world, that you're open. I had to do that too. I had to learn several languages, and I think that is the reality in the modernized world. And on this basis, if I may say that, in full cooperation with the concerned ministry, the German government, the Indian government have agreed to cooperate, to have this wonderful project of German at 1,000 schools, which had a smashing success. 79,000 students are learning German at KV schools. They love it, and I think it's very impressive to see how good they are in doing that.
Is this issue likely to feature in the meeting between Chancellor Angela Merkel and Prime Minister Modi in Australia?
That is, of course, not my decision, but I think that the Chancellor is well aware of this issue.
Now, the argument being raised, sir, is that this violates our three-language policy. That's the argument being raised by the HRD minister and ministry over here, and therefore this MOU is faulty. How do you reply to that, sir?
India and Germany are strategic partners. They are bound culturally through this common language roots, but they're also bound economically because we can give each other so much, which fits perfectly in the current agenda of this government, and which is in line of what the young kids rightly want. Anyway, we are not forcing upon anyone anything. It's an option. We are talking about an option. If kids choose this option, if their parents are in favor that kids choose this option, I think we should find a way to make this possible, of course in line with the Indian constitution. I don't think that the Indian constitution is touched or violated by teaching German. I think we'll find a way in the contacts also with the Indian governments, because I feel that the arguments of the kids, of the teachers, of the industry, of the economy are pretty strong arguments.
All right, the Ambassador Steiner, the German ambassador to New Delhi, speaking to me a little while earlier on. Nalin, let me get you to first respond to that first point, that chances are that Chancellor Merkel will be raising this with Prime Minister Modi. This has irked the Germans, let's face it, and perhaps rightfully so. We wouldn't like it if 79,000 students, say in another country learning Hindi, or Sanskrit for that matter, were told overnight that, look, you know, you have to learn something else.
No, I think the timing has to be seen in context of what happened. The MOU was signed mid-year. It wasn't signed at the beginning of an academic year. So the problem wouldn't have arisen. Because it was signed in 2011 September and therefore had to be renewed in September, which is a mid-academic year, this confusion has come. But I'm sure the Germans, as anyone else, Ambassador Steiner spoke about the constitution. He was a little incorrect on that. The issue is not with the Constitution of India, but rather with the national education policy and the national curriculum framework. And certainly, I'm sure, whether it's Germany or whether it's India, none of us would like to go against the policy of the government. So that is the framework within which we need to operate. To look at it as if there's an agenda to remove German is incorrect. It's very harsh. I think to say that it's a political move to drive in Sanskrit is equally harsh. This is a reality. You can't go against the framework. If we start breaking the very frameworks in which we are working, then everything is possible. We can also decide to junk law and simply say, oh, let's look at law.
That's what the last government did. They junked law.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry. The last government did a lot of things that weren't exactly in phrase. In this case, okay, let me just simply say, what does the national education policy say? It talks of a 3-language formula. It talks clearly. Then what is this ruling of the court say on Sanskrit? All of it is there. Why wasn't it referred to the HRD ministry?
It was.
Who prevented them to apply what was
hang
the
on
framework?
A second.
Okay. If it was referred also,
this is the MOU. It was signed there by their minister in the presence of HRD Minister Shri E. Ahmed, Government of India. This was
very
signed.
Good. So if it's an oversight
by their Minister of State for Foreign Affairs.
Fair enough. You read the MOU, I don't have the MOU, but that doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is...
So everybody knew about this?
Well, hang on.
So that's my question. So are you saying that the previous government was wrong?
Well, I'm simply saying the previous government has ignored or disregarded or been ignorant of their own functions about the national education policy and this. Now, I can't take responsibility for that. An anomaly is being corrected. To believe that it's an agenda is incorrect. To believe that this is an agenda to drive out German is absolutely incorrect. A solution will come, and a solution will be line in what should be done in the correct way.
Professor Rajan, do you agree with what Nalin has to say?
Yeah, I'd just like to
give it in context. Just one
context,
short, small question. 79,000 students.
Sure.
Right.
But then we are also talking of a country where there are 32 crore young people all looking, and they are going to be the largest young cohort in the world when they come of age. So we are really looking at children. How they are going to be 20 years from now.
79,000
so I'm putting the 79,000 in the context of the country.
Yeah, but 79,000 is not a small number, ma'am.
Hang on. I'm not saying 79,000 is not. Secondly, they are not going to stand in the streets tomorrow. I mean, it's being created as if some huge boulder is sitting on their heads. They're being told the textbooks are no longer valid. But I'm getting sidelined by the 79,000. I would rather focus on the 32 crore children. The context is that the CBSE is the affiliating body, and the CBSE scheme of studies has set out 30 languages, including Hindi, English, Assamese, Bengali, Gujarati, Kannada, Bhutia, Sanskrit, Arabic, Persian, French, German, Portuguese, Russian, Spanish, Nepali, Tibetan, Mizo. And they're all in one frame, and the recommendation is 2 languages out of these.
Right.
Kendriya Vidyalayas are institutions where children of employees of the central government study, and there are very few people who are outside of this ambit. My submission is, let not the whole burden of what we call national interest just fall on one set of children, where all their fellow students in private schools are studying anything they want. In Bombay, they are starting Mandarin in early childhood. And so we just can't put, it's generally been that government school children, all the burden of everything, whether it is patriotism, everything has to be on government school children. I think they deserve, when they pass out at class 12, they need to be doing so many other things.
Don't you think, ma'am, that they need the opportunity, if they so choose, to study in a German university where the knowledge of German... Just as much as a private school would. Sure, absolutely.
And we are talking about KVs now, so I am batting for the children of KV.
Why must we not consider what these 79,000 students are going through?
Hang on, I am talking precisely about them, and I am directing attention to something that we need to take further.
Right.
This is a particular incident where, of course, because of the bilateral, there's a different kind of focus on this. But I want to get back to the 32 crore children and the KV as a centerpiece. They are a pace-setting institution of our country, and they have to show the rest of the country how to go about it. And this is where I'm saying, I'm so happy this issue has come up. There are 3 things important. One is that the 3-language formula does not mention international languages, but it does not preclude.
Right.
The 3-language formula is supposed to be the minimum.
Yes.
Now, the third option, which they have talked about, is these 30 languages. All of them are mentioned there.
Yes.
So, language doesn't mean Sanskrit. Language means Sindhi, Punjabi, Oriya, anything. Leave out the international if you like. But as an option, as we are looking at it, and from what I read in the newspapers, German replacing Sanskrit is not only, I think, a wrong way of looking at it, but it's not just Sanskrit.
The third option can be any of the languages.
No,
Suppose
it's
you
not
were
a-
in a
it's
KV.
not- it's not
No, just
Sanskrit
one
versus
sec.
German.
No. I'm
It's
saying
not. The debate is not about Sanskrit
No, I
versus
know
German.
this is not the debate,
It's
but-
wrongly being made out to be
No, I'm
Sanskrit replacing
I'm
German.
complicating and extending this argument to point out here that it's not a question of just these two languages. And Nalinji and I were talking earlier. Germany has done more for scholarship of Sanskrit than probably we
Yes,
did.
absolutely.
So that's not the issue. But the issue is to broaden this whole thing. The third language option includes 30, 24, 25 languages.
Okay,
Not just Sanskrit.
okay, ma'am.
And that is
Let me
sending
just
out
go
a kind
across
of
to my other
different,
panelists, or else I fear I may keep chatting with you for the next 1 hour.
And
We don't have
children
that
love
much
multiple
time.
languages. Let's have 4 sets of languages.
Rajiv Gowda, a counter argument to what ma'am mentioned over there is that whether it's Sanskrit or several other Indian languages, they don't have that global appeal which a language like German does.
No, I'm not saying that.
No, I'm making this argument, and therefore, Mr. Gowda, would you therefore agree that if children are given the opportunity, in this case, to study German, it could have been Japanese, it could have been Chinese, they have that opportunity of perhaps studying abroad, perhaps being engineers trained in a good institution outside the country? So therefore, do you believe that by removing German, a mistake has been made? Rajiv Gowda?
They're adding German as the 4th option. They're not removing.
As a hobby.
Well,
No,
it
it's
should
about
be
class
professional.
economy.
I
It's
agree
not-
with you.
No.
I
One
agree.
minute,
As
I
a
must
hobby.
point out, one
It should
minute.
not
Which
be a
one is a
hobby.
mistake? I think it is about finding place in the number of classes. I've run a school, I've taught in classes, so I know what it means. You may have a set of classes that you can play around with. You need to have a minimum for mathematics, minimum for something, so therefore you're making it there. Now there are some students who opted out of mathematics for sports. So they said, we want
No,
to
no,
take
you're
this.
lessening
hold
the
on.
importance of this.
No, I'm not lessening the importance, because tomorrow it's also this government is focused outward. This government is talking about greater engagement with the West,
Absolutely.
with the East.
Yes.
So therefore, it's not only about German; it could be Japanese, Mandarin, so much more.
Okay,
So
all
I
right.
think we
Okay,
are
Rajiv
going
Gowda, you had a
back
point to
to
make.
Just
Rajiv
in
Gowda,
German.
go ahead.
Wrong way.
Rajiv,
Spanish,
Rajiv
Portuguese,
Gowda,
French.
go ahead.
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
Yes.
I have multiple points to make. I have multiple points to make if our studio guests would give those of us who are outside the studio
Sorry.
a chance. Well, the first thing that I want to point out, Vishnu, is that this decision smacks of total insensitivity to 78,000 students. This is not what a HRD minister should be doing. It is something that could easily have been grandfathered. You could have said this is something that's going to change from next year. Instead, you're disrupting school curricula and throwing everything awry. That is not the way you treat students in the middle of the year when exams are around the corner. The second thing is the purpose of allowing the Kendriya Vidyalayas Sangathan to start experimenting with multiple languages, including foreign languages, is an acknowledgement that a lot of change has taken place since the national education policy, the curriculum framework were framed more than nearly a decade ago. And essentially, we have youngsters eager to learn other languages, to be able to step into different markets around the world, and to be our ambassadors and in IT companies and elsewhere. And that's something that would give our government school children in Kendriya Vidyalayas an edge, which is currently available only to those who are able to pay for German or French or any other kind, or Chinese in Max Miller Bhavan or something of that sort. So what this is doing is yielding to the Sanskrit Shikshan Sangathan, to bosses in Nagpur trying to import Sanskrit, then backtracking and
Professor,
saying, no,
okay, one moment. I just want to go across to Professor
want to
Pushpesh
go
Pant.
about doing these sorts of
Professor
changes.
Pant,
Don't mess with our children's
Yes.
future.